What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. And this is the last Spider-Man video for you. It is the last actor who has adapted the on-screen role of Spider-Man, Tom Holland, and here are 10 reasons why Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man. Number 10, he has Stan Lee's blessing. Look, it's not even up for debate. Stan Lee is the best there is, the best there was, and the best that there will ever be when it comes to creating iconic comic book characters. He proved that he was a legend when he co-created some of the greatest superheroes, including Spider-Man, Black Panther, Thor, Iron Man, and the X-Men. Just about every actor part of the MCU wanted Stan Lee's blessing because they knew that he understood these characters more than anyone else in the world. When he was asked to share his thoughts about the Spider-Man reboot, he instantly praised Marvel's casting directors. He claimed that it was as if they were creating a live being to the Spider-Man, and that person turned out to be Tom. I know what you're probably thinking. Of course he'll call him the perfect Spider-Man. What else is he supposed to say? Say that Tom's performance as Spider-Man was terrible and turn everyone against the MCU? Well, to argue that point, I would say that he could have simply stated that he thought that Tom was a great Spider-Man, which is what he said about Tobey and Andrew. Instead, Stan Lee went ahead and claimed that Tom is exactly the type of person he envisioned while creating the comics. That just shows that he truly believed Tom captured the essence of Spider-Man. Number 9, his high-tech Spidey suit. To say that I was angry at the MCU for not having Peter create his own suit would be an understatement. But at the same time, I'm sick and tired of hearing people complain about the technological advances of the suit. As much as I love the classic Spider-Man suit, I think it's time for people to finally let go of nostalgia and realize that nothing is wrong with modernizing superheroes, especially if it's done right. There are some fanboys who believe that the MCU turned their favorite superhero into Iron Man 2.0, and all I have to say is that Spider-Man has been using high-tech gadgets for years before Homecoming even came out. Tom's Spider-Man used the Spider Tracer, Spider Drone, web bombs, and web wings, which were literally all introduced in the comics. Not going to lie, giving Spider-Man 574 different ways he can use his webs is just a little too much for my liking, but it does allow the MCU to come up with super cool action sequences. I know that some people were worried that Spider-Man was going to spend way too much time relying on his suit, but Homecoming did a pretty good job at addressing that problem. Even when Tony took away Spider-Man's high-tech suit, he still managed to defeat Vulture, proving that his suit doesn't define whether or not he's a superhero. Number 8, he's the most relatable Spider-Man. Tom's Spider-Man sucks at being Spider-Man, and that's the best part about the entire movie. Throughout Homecoming, Peter screws up a lot, which makes perfect sense because most teenagers wouldn't know how to live a double life as a high school student and a superhero. He almost destroyed the Staten Island ferry, didn't keep his phone on silent while he was taking down bad guys, and wasn't even able to intimidate Aaron Davis. On top of that, he accidentally revealed his identity to his best friends within the first 20 minutes of the entire movie and completely wrecked Flash's car. Peter wanted to do what was best for his loved ones, yet he continuously failed, and that right there is exactly why everyone loves Spider-Man. He doesn't represent that unbelievable, crazy buff superhero who can simply solve every problem he encounters with his strength. Instead, he represents an ordinary skinny boy who tries to use his abilities the best way possible and still finds himself making mistakes after mistakes. Just like Peter, people fail despite putting in their best effort, and they're left with no other choice but to pick themselves back up. Tom Spider-Man acts as the epitome of learning from your mistakes, and that's why this superhero is considered the most relatable comic book character of all time. Number 7, he has real-life Spidey abilities. The fact that Tom Holland can look and act the part of Spider-Man should be enough to persuade anyone that he's perfect for the role, but that's not where his talent ends. You know when actors can do something that their characters are known for doing and you're just like, wow, talk about perfect casting? Well, that's exactly how Chris Evans felt when he had to do a screen test with Tom. The script stated that Spider-Man had to leap in the scene and have a conversation with Captain America, which is what led to Tom asking if it would be okay if he did a flip. Everyone looked at him like he was crazy, and the Marvel representatives were like, bro, have you seen our overuse of green screen that sometimes makes our movies look like low quality video games? No need to worry about doing your own stunts. We can just CGI that shit. Anyways, Tom eventually convinced them to allow him to do a flip, and he instantly proved that he was born for this role. According to Tom, one of the best decisions that he made in his life was spending years and years practicing parkour as well as taking gymnastics classes because his acrobatic skills helped him land the Spider-Man gig. Number 6, he saved the villain. Heroes saving their enemies is a common trope that always makes comic book fans scratch their heads and wonder why anyone is dumb enough to allow a murderous psychopath to live. I completely understand why it confuses so many people. If I had extraordinary abilities and my villain counterpart was only seconds away from death, I would hold up a peace sign and walk away without hesitation. And that is why I, as well as many other people in this world, would make a terrible superhero, while Spider-Man makes an amazing hero. In Homecoming, Spider-Man had to deal with the guy who almost killed him multiple times, sold advanced alien weaponry to the black market, and tried to destroy the Staten Island ferry. Despite all of this, Spider-Man still felt like Vulture's life was worth saving. What makes Spider-Man a true hero is that he knows that the system obviously needs help, but he also understands that it's not broken to the point where it's unrepairable. The MCU made Spider-Man more likable than he ever was before because they showed that he's one of those guys who will always see the best in others even if that person doesn't deserve it. Number 5, he perfectly fits in a world of superheroes. When the MCU began to go through a long list of young actors who could potentially play Peter Parker, they weren't just searching for the perfect Spider-Man, they were also searching for someone who could easily blend in with the rest of the Avengers. Spider-Man is without a doubt the most iconic superhero in the Marvel Universe, so they wanted to make sure that he wasn't overshadowed by other great superheroes like Iron Man and Captain America. Being able to stand next to incredible actors like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, and Scarlett Johansson without looking like a fool is definitely not an easy task. Somehow, Tom managed to not only keep up with the other actors in the universe, but he also surprisingly outshined them in a few scenes. Just look at Infinity War and Endgame. This guy barely had any screen time, yet people still talked about him as they walked out of the movie theater because Tom's acting is just that good. Tobey and Andrew are great actors, but I think it's impossible to imagine their Spider-Mans going into space with the Avengers so they could fight a big purple dude who wants to kill half the population. Number 4, Teenage Spider-Man. When we watched the Raimi trilogy and the Amazing Spider-Man movies, we all had to pretend like we believed that Tobey and Andrew could pass as teenagers, but that wasn't the case with Tom. While Tobey's Spider-Man had to worry about getting a job, paying rent, and passing college, Tom's Spider-Man was more concerned with impressing a girl who was 2 years older than him. No, MCU Spider-Man doesn't feel like a teenager just because he has to deal with the typical high school stuff. He feels like a teenager because Tom understands how 15-year-olds would react if they were placed in the same situation as Peter. Captain America: Civil War perfectly illustrates that Tom knows exactly what a teenager would do if he was given the chance to meet some of his idols. The first thing Spider-Man did when he met Captain America was tell him that he's a big fan despite knowing that he's supposed to be the enemy. Then he told Bucky that his metal arm was super cool only seconds after he tried to punch him in the face, which perfectly showed Spider-Man's obsession with having conversations in the middle of a conflict. He even referenced the Empire Strikes Back just so he could find a way to take down Ant-Man. If that doesn't tell you that Tom accurately depicted a teenager, then I don't know what else will. Number 3, he went undercover at a high school. Since Tom was born and raised in England, he jokingly suggested to Marvel that he should go undercover so he could learn more about American high schools, and they actually took him seriously. He was sent to the Bronx High School of Science, which is ranked as one of the top high schools in the country, and he was enrolled in classes that Peter would have most likely taken. To keep his identity secret, he used his American accent and told everyone that his name was Ben. You know, Tom's dedicated to a role when he's willing to sit through classes such as AP Physics, AP Calc, AP Literature, AP Microeconomics, and basically every other dreadful AP class you can think of. He literally had no idea what his teachers were saying, but luckily he was able to use his acting skills to pretend like he knew what he was doing. By the second day, the thrill of being undercover was wearing off, and Holland was starting to experience a feeling most high schoolers have daily: boredom. To make time pass faster, he went up to random people and asked them what they thought about the new Spider-Man actor. Not even one person recognized him. Tom looked straight into their eyes and told them that he was Spider-Man, but they all just laughed it off because they thought he was crazy. Little did they know that he would become one of the biggest stars of the MCU. Number 2, the uniqueness of the story. Homecoming is unlike any of the previous Spider-Man movies we've seen. And no, I'm not just saying that because Marvel decided to hire a younger actor for the role or because they gave him a high-tech suit. What truly makes the movie unique is that the MCU changed just about every single character in the Spider-Man universe, yet they still found a way to stay true to the essence of the superhero. Instead of going with the super buff Flash, who could easily get any girl he wants, the MCU went with a skinny Flash who spends more time reading books than playing sports. Instead of going with a red-headed MJ who was chased by Peter, the MCU went with a dark-haired MJ who would chase Peter. Instead of going with a rich pretty boy like Harry Osborn who had a bunch of daddy issues, the MCU went with a geeky best friend like Ned who would act as the guy in the chair. To make the story even more unique, they chose Vulture as the villain for Homecoming and Mysterio as the villain for Far From Home because none of them appeared in the other Spider-Man movies. And you know what's the best part? Even with all these changes, Spider-Man still feels like Spider-Man. At number 1, he accurately portrays Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Tobey's ability to make himself look like a believable dork is what caused people to view him as a great Peter, but his inability to crack jokes is what caused people to view him as a mediocre Spider-Man. Andrew, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. Fans hated his take on Peter because he acted like an emo skateboarder who would excessively mumble, but they loved his take on Spider-Man because his comedy scenes were gold. I know that fans have already said this millions of times, but Tom perfectly nails both aspects of the character. Tom shows Peter's geeky side when he hangs out with his friend to build Lego Death Stars, wears dorky graphic t-shirts, and gets a dry mouth as he talks to his crush. Then he shows Spider-Man's funny side when he leans against the wall just so he could introduce himself to some bank robbers, and continues the tradition of telling jokes while his enemies are trying to kill him. Tom clearly understood that fans wanted him to portray a nerdy Peter just as much as they wanted him to portray a charismatic Spider-Man. And that is it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Valenplana, and I'll see you all in the next video.